and welcome back to Murder, Lies and Everything in Between, a true crime podcast with me, Jess, and my husband, Atty.
Hi, guys.
Hope everybody has had a good week. We're really sorry about this cock-up that we've had this week. OneDrive decided it wanted to fail me, didn't it, Atty?
That's what she said. She blames OneDrive, guys. You know what I mean?
OneDrive decided that it just didn't want to save anything. Well, it said it saved it. And then all of a sudden I went to open my laptop and all my research had gone and about 5 or 6 pages of notes had gone, which is probably like more than half of the episode. And I could not face redoing that all over again. So what we decided to do is we decided to do a little bit of I would say it's kind of like a mini episode today. It's not kind of like the hour-ish we normally do. But it is still a very, very important case. This one is. So it's a little bit different to what we normally do, this week's cases. But don't worry, we will jump back on the brutal ones next, this Sunday. So today we are covering a not very known case of the murder of Kirsty Jones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it slightly differently. The sources for today's case, I'm not going to read them all out to you. I'll just list them down in the description box. So they'll all be in the show notes, so you can kind of go through them if you want to kind of have a look through them. Kirsty Jones grew up in a village of Tredoman near Brecon, which is in kind of like mid-Wales. And her family actually had a farm there. So she was a farm girl. Her mum, Sue, and her dad, Glyn, described her as being bright, intelligent, independent, with the world at her feet. Olivia Schultz and Georgina Baird, who were Kirsty's best friends at university, said we would watch her go out jogging in the freezing November mornings while we were watching Richard and Judy. Sounds like something we would do. Yeah. Watch our friends run in cold weather, not actually go out and do it ourselves. And they both actually said that Kirsty would kind of continue to be an inspiration to them after everything that kind of happened. Kirsty actually at the age of 14 decided that before she wanted to go to university, she actually wanted to travel a little bit. So I would say 14 is the kind of normal age that people kind of start to make those decisions about what they want to do. You know, they see friends going away and they see all these things on TV and, you know.
14, they're still young. 14,
teenage age, yeah.
Yeah, but
in
traveling,
2000s,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what? People don't travel until they left school. What?
Yeah, but in
16,
there,
17?
16 at that age. So we were talking like late 90s. So it was 16 leaving age. A couple of years till she left.
So she thought about what she was going to do after when she left school.
Yeah, definitely. So what she wanted to do is before she actually went off to university, she wanted to travel a bit. So that's what she kind of set her sights on. So in 1996, she set off to Australia, and then on her way back, because it's so far from Australia, you stop off in Thailand a lot of the time. So she stopped off in there for a little bit, absolutely fucking loved the place. And she kind of, after she got home safe, you know, she had a really, really good trip, and she just fell in love with traveling. That's what her family said. She just fell in love with traveling. So she set her sights on her next goal, which was that when she finished university, she was going to take some time out after university. She was going to graduate, earn a little bit of money so that she could go traveling again.
Right.
But next time she wasn't going to go traveling just for a little while. She was going to go traveling for a couple of years, and she was going to do like a really big trip. Okay. I mean, it sounds great fun. Doesn't sound so much fun for me now. Or you, we're not big travellers like that, are we? No. We'd never have the bollocks to do that. But you know, at that age,
you just can't be asked to do that.
Yeah, I'm a home bird.
Yeah, you'd rather stay at home and chill.
Yeah, I would. Don't get me wrong, I like going on holiday, but yeah, that's not my idea of fun.
And you still stress about that.
Yeah. So when she was actually 23 years old, she graduated from University of Liverpool with a degree in English and Media Studies. And in May of 2000, she set off travelling.
Right.
So she did exactly what she said she was going to do. Before she arrived in Thailand in early August 2000, she'd already visited Singapore and Malaysia, as she was travelling solo for that entire time. So she was travelling on her own to those places. I mean, that woman had some guts to do that. So brave. I don't know how, when I hear about people doing it now, I don't know how people do it. It's so brave.
some people do. I've got a few mates at work, and he like his name's actually Craig. I've told Jess about this before. And he loves going traveling. Any last
Just
minute,
on his own.
and he'll happily just go. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's what he wants to do. Do you know what I mean? He's happy doing
Yeah.
it now. But yeah, he'll come back for a little while, work, and then go on holiday, travel for a week or so, then come back, work, and do the same thing
Yeah.
all over again. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
why
Some
not?
people love it, don't they?
Yeah, and he said he's happy just doing it by himself. He's got no one else to worry about. He can just go there everywhere. He doesn't have to have that burden, may I say, do you know what I mean? All that
Yeah.
other
The
worry.
hassle of worrying about someone else.
Yeah, somebody else, you know what I mean? If he wants to go there, he can go there. If he doesn't want to go there, he doesn't. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So he just packs his bags and goes kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy days to him, or happy days to people who love to do that. You know, take
Definitely,
my hat
yeah.
off to you. If you want to see the world, why not?
Go for it. Yeah, I mean, just going on your own shouldn't stop you.
No. Well, you make friends, don't you? You know, you see other people.
Yeah.
You know.
No, definitely. Well, in Thailand, she'd actually planned on meeting her best friend Rianne. So she had planned on meeting someone there.
Right.
And from there, they would travel kind of like for a month together. So they'd travel for a month together. And then after that, Kirsty planned on going to Bali.
Yep.
And then she planned on going to Australia to meet her boyfriend, who was actually working in Sydney at the time. After she kind of spent a bit of time with him and her time ended with him, she planned on then finishing her trip up in South America and then flying home from South America. So flying back to the UK from South America. During her time in Thailand, she'd actually planned on going to like some well-known trekking hub, which is Chiang Mai. During this time, she was going to kind of do like jungle hikes, riding elephants, visiting elephant rescues, visiting like the hill tribes, all the kind of things that you would love to do when you're traveling.
Yeah.
You know, all those kind of things that you don't have here. We don't have any of those kind of things here. So at this point, she'd been in Chiang Mai she'd been traveling, for 3 months at this point. Okay, so she'd only been traveling for 3 months out of her 2-year around the world trip. This was when her plans would end earlier than anticipated. When Kirsty got to Chiang Mai, she checked into Ari's guest house and massage school. And this was a wooden building, to kind of put it into, so you can imagine it. This was a wooden building that had been converted into a guest house, okay? From what I can see, these are very, very popular kind of buildings in this area. They're wooden buildings and they're kind of like homes that are transformed into guest houses for cheap accommodation for travellers. This was actually owned by 32-year-old Andrew Gill, and he was actually a British man living in Chiang Mai, and he'd bought it kind of years before. He'd actually inherited £10,000 off his mum when she passed away, and he'd used that 10 grand to buy this guest house, okay? Suran Shanprapat, he was a Thai resident, and he actually managed the Thai massage school that's upstairs. So there's like a compound upstairs, and he lived in there with his family. Okay, so Suran managed the upstairs, helped manage the guest house, but Andrew actually owned it and then helped manage it and all that kind of jazz. Okay. So to paint the picture for you of what this guest house in the area is like, they charged 60 baht a night for a single room, and that converted is about, well, at the time of this case was about £1. So £1 a night.
Yeah.
Fucking super, super cheap. In an article I actually read, it said, quote, "Life in Chiang Mai is easy, cheap, undemanding, seductive. The narrow lanes in downtown Chiang Mai, which boast internet cafes, food stalls, bars, secondhand bookshops, are virtually deserted until 11 a.m. Everyone is still in bed, sleeping off the night before. You can get almost anything you want," one French backpacker said, who did not want to be named. He said, quote, "You can get heroin, cannabis, anything." Apparently, following Thailand's economic collapse a few years before, money earned in jobs back in the UK, it goes a long way in Thailand at this time. So you could go there with, in our world, not a very lot of money, and over there it would stretch for ages and ages and ages. We know this already. I mean, if people don't already know this, Ati is originally from Thailand, so his mum is Thai. And it goes really far, doesn't it? Like you said about your mum and stuff. Like it's madness how far it stretches.
And you wonder why people go over there on holiday or like retire over there and buy properties over there.
Of course, yeah.
What you buy over there, like what £250,000 house over here, maybe 2-bedroom if you're lucky, depending
Yeah.
on location.
Yeah.
Oh, you can buy a bloody mansion over there when you
Yeah, you could.
convert it over,
Yeah.
or a big 5-bedroom property, maybe in bigger,
Oh,
swimming pool and everything.
100%, yeah.
It's ridiculous, the rates.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as good now, but it's still really cheap.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So even 20 odd years
Yeah.
later after this case.
But you could say that between the pound and the euro, can't you? Or the pound and the dollar.
It's the same. It's pretty much the same
Near
now.
enough the same now. You know what I
Didn't
mean?
used to be years
No.
ago. Like, I know the dollar used to, when I used to go to America regularly with my family, it used to be double.
Yeah.
Literally double.
Yeah,
The
or even a
quid
bit
you
more.
could get $2. It was madness.
And now it's like near enough.
The same.
Yeah, the same. Or 0.07%, I think. It's like a stupid thing like that.
It's shocking.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah. Let's not go into why the pound is so weak though now.
Yeah.
So also staying at that area at the same time was Stuart Crichton. He was actually a 28-year-old Australian man. Nathan Foley, a 27-year-old man who was travelling from Australia to the UK, and he was going to Kent to visit his family. So he hadn't seen them for a little while, and that's where he was going. And 27-year-old British man, Stephen Trigg, who had been travelling for at least 4 years at the time. Okay. And also an American ex-Mormon called Glenn Lister, who was just kind of visiting the area. Stephen, Stuart, and Glenn were long-term residents at the area. So at this point, they'd been there months and months and months, okay, which is what they class as long-term residents. On the 9th of August 2000, Kirsty went out with her friends for dinner. We can assume that she must have met these people while in Chiang Mai, okay, because she didn't have any friends when she was there. She hadn't met up with Rianne yet. So these must have been people that she went on like tours and stuff with. She also went with Nathan Foley, one of the other residents at the Array. Okay, so I don't know how many people specifically, but it was definitely Nathan Foley and a couple of other people. When she returned home shortly before midnight, she went straight to her room, and that was the last time she would be seen alive. Not long after Kirsty got back to the Array, Saran, the manager, and Stephen Trigg heard her shout, quote, leave me alone, get off me, end quote. They both heard this and they stood at the top of the stairs trying to figure out what room it was coming from and where it was coming from. They figured out it actually comes from Kirsty's room downstairs, and instead of investigating why she was shouting, Saran sent Stephen back to his room before he could open Kirsty's door, and this altercation went completely unchecked. Okay. When Stephen was asked why he didn't go and actually open the door and check what was going on and see what the fuck was going on.
See what the problem was, yeah.
Yeah. He said, well, I travel a lot, so this happens all the time. People get into arguments. If I basically stopped and intercepted every fight or argument that happened, he said he would look like a patchwork doll.
Yeah.
Because he would always be fighting all the time. I can understand that to a certain extent, but she was the only female in this guest house. All the rest of them were male.
Right.
You would think some kind of masculinity would come over to you to try and step in, or especially if you'd been out for dinner with her that night. But they both seemingly kind of put it down to a lover's tiff that got too noisy, apparently. So they thought it was just two people that were having sex and it just got out of hand, okay? Remember, Thailand is quite a conservative place. So if she was having sex or something along those lines, Saran, who is a Thai resident, definitely didn't want to be walking in on that. I can understand that to an extent. Kirsty's body would remain in the state her killer left it for the next 15 hours. She had been raped and then strangled with her own sarong. So, how did her body remain undiscovered for so long in a small 2-story wooden shack with so many people sleeping under the same roof? Tiny, tiny building. How do you not hear that, and how do people not know something weird's going on? Okay. I will just point out as well, I haven't put this in my notes, but it's something that it just reminded me that I forgot to put in. During the night, a lock actually appeared on her door, like a padlock, but it was locked from the outside. So, but just to put it out there, that was spotted by one person, it was stated. So, the sad truth behind why she was undiscovered for so long is simply just that, due to the residents' personal situations and their circumstances, nobody felt that they could actually report it. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background on the reasoning why some of the residents of the area would want to try and delay the police or possibly even cover it up completely. Andrew Gill, the area's owner who we've spoke about, he'd actually overstayed his visa by 2 years. He wasn't even meant to be in the country anymore. You can imagine he did not want people to be bringing the police to his door and highlighting his presence in the country when he wasn't even supposed to be there anymore.
Right, of course.
Also, there's very strict laws in Thailand about owning property if you're not a Thai resident. I didn't know this. I thought it would be quite easy. Apparently it's not. Apparently, like, you either have to, like, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, or what we know a lot of, there's a lot of corruption. You can pay people off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's face it. It's common knowledge that it's very low pay in Thailand. It is very low pay, and corruption is very, very common there, unfortunately. So how did he actually gain ownership of this business? He allegedly also had a Thai girlfriend or wife. It's not consistent in all sources, so it's either his girlfriend or his wife. And from what I could decipher, if he was to be sent back to the UK, it could have ended up becoming her property under Thai law. So he didn't want that either. He wanted his property. He's had that money. Yeah, it's his. Yeah, in his eyes, not in Thai law eyes though. So it was also common knowledge that Andrew actually had an alcohol problem and he would become aggressive when he would drink. Also, when police arrived at the property, he had already made himself scarce, and it wasn't until 2 days after the discovery of Kirsty's body that he was actually arrested in a bar and then interviewed. So he'd run away before the police could even get there. We could put that down, though, to him not meant to be in the country anymore and wanting to try and get away with it.
Yeah, of course.
Stuart Crichton, he was a street fighter. He was also known to be a weed smoker, which isn't an issue. I don't have any issues with weed. But he was also a heroin addict. So what comes along with being a heroin addict? He'd have drugs in his room. If he's going to have drugs in his room on the night of the murder, the last thing he's going to want is the police
sniffing around.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. We all know what Thailand is like for drugs. I'm sure we have all heard what prisons are like over there. It's definitely not the place.
Oh, you ain't going to court. You get caught with drugs, you're going straight to prison. That's it.
It's not a place you want to be spending a prison stint.
15 years, you are fucked. There ain't no court trick, there ain't no nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing. You're getting locked up and that's it. They're throwing away that fucking kid.
There ain't no like little jail cell to wait
with
to get bailed.
With a TV and an Xbox.
Yeah, there's none of that, mate. You're literally going to the main prison.
They're brutal, yeah.
End of story.
So Siran Shankprapat had weed and amphetamines in his apartment. So he really didn't want the police rifling through his belongings and potentially finding his stash. So we're going through all this, and all these people have got, well, not all of them, but a lot of these people have got reasons as to why they do not want police kind of rifling through their shit or coming in and looking through things. They don't want that stuff. So later on, the police, the maid actually told police in her initial statement that she went to clean Kirsty's room at 4 p.m. and that was when she found her body and called the police. Okay, so that's what she said. That was her story. She found her body at 4 o'clock when she went to go and clean her room. But someone, we don't know who, because it was never divulged to anybody or in any source, they actually told her to give this statement. So she didn't actually discover her body at all. But someone lent upon her to tell them that information. She didn't even find Kirsty's body at all.
Right.
The police actually believed that Saran, the manager, was the one that found her body. And he found her body at 11 a.m. So 5 hours earlier than it was even reported to the police. So putting aside for the moment who actually discovered Kirsty's body, it was clear to the investigators that some of the residents knew about the murder hours and hours and hours before they even bothered reporting it to the police. So we know that sounds dodgy as fuck already. Like, that sounds dodgy. You're finding a body, you're reporting it. I mean, I understand the drugs part of it. I understand the reasoning behind some of them, panicking a little bit. But this woman's body is in... What are they going to do? Try and cover it up?
I might do, yeah, I don't know.
It's crazy. I mean, we can't pretend to know what these people are thinking. So the investigation would unfortunately go on a downward spiral from the moment Kirsty's body was reported to police. So if it wasn't already the fact that nobody's reported it until hours and hours and hours and hours after, before the police could even attend the scene, a whole news crew had arrived and were trifling through the crime scene, moving her body and moving her head and the sarong that was wrapped around her neck that killed her to get pictures of her injuries before the police have even been to the crime scene. During the course of the next 5 days, 8 men in total were interviewed, 6 of who were foreign to Thailand and 2 native Thai men. Well, I say Thai men, one was a tribe man. Apparently, if you're in the Hill tribe, you're not classed as Thai.
Right.
Apparently, it's in Thailand anyway, but you're not classed as Thai, which I thought was really weird. A little bit of useless information for you. Semen was actually found on the sarong that was used to strangle Kirsty. It was found inside of her, and it was DNA was found underneath her fingernails. So we do have DNA in this case. So I would think that if there has kind of been that much contamination at the crime scene, surely you would test the DNA that was left inside of her, yeah? Or under the fingernails. That's what you would think. Because if you've seen news crews moving a sarong from her neck, you would test her the internal semen that was left by the rapist or what has been scratched. No. They used the DNA that was on the sarong that many, many people had touched. Like, you could probably say 10, 15, 20 people had touched this sarong. So how can you be sure that that DNA is the DNA of the murderer? You don't know that. The test came back as positive to matching a man of Asian descent. So what they can decipher is that it's coming from an Asian man, an East Asian man. So it's none of basically the other foreigners. It's definitely someone from Thailand, okay? So this wiped off the 6 foreign men off the police's radar, but it left 2 Thai men. Saran gave his sample of DNA, and that came back also as no match. So it's not Saran, so we're only left with one person now. So a tour guide, Abraham Narong, that had actually taken a group of travellers, including Kirsty, trekking up to the Hill tribes. He was the one that I said is a member of the Hill tribe, not as classed as Thai. He took them up a few days prior to her death. He was pulled in for an interview and for a DNA test to rule him out. Abraham, as I said, was a member of the Hill tribe. He actually was attacked by a group of disguised people who drugged him, drove him to a holding cell in some unknown location, and tried to basically force a false confession out of him by basically just beating the shit out of him. Not only that, but they attempted to force semen out of him by getting him to masturbate. And when that failed, they tried doing it to him to basically get semen out of him.
Right.
Thankfully, they weren't obviously successful at this, and he managed to get himself free. And he did willingly give a sample to the police officers when it was requested. So there was no reason for any of this. What people think and what certain people in the media think is that the reason these people did this is because they wanted tourist trade to return back to normal. They didn't want all this fear being around. So what they think is that was an attempt in setting him up just so they could get someone in prison for it. And what they were going to do is they were going to use that semen to plant. That's what they thought was going to happen. Right. Okay. As I said before, there's a lot of corruption going on. We know there's corruption. When the results returned, no DNA links could be made to Abraham or any of the potential suspects against the samples that were taken from the sarong. None of them matched it. The facilities, though, they had at their disposals, they're basic, like very, very, very basic. And this would end up putting a screeching halt to finding Kirsty's killer. Judgmental and derogatory comments were made freely about Kirsty, giving false information to the media and other officers. One in particular actually commented, this was by the chief investigator, and he said, quote, She must have been having consensual sex at the time of her rape that turned violent because she had condoms in her drawer in her room. So what he's saying is that she must have been having consensual sex at the time, which then turned into rape just because she had condoms in her room.
Yeah.
How judgmental do you have to be to make that assumption? Someone's being safe. Why is she all of a sudden having sex with someone just because she's got condoms in her drawer? He was actually removed from the case once this statement was leaked out to people, and he was actually relocated to another area of Thailand. So they said that this made them look terrible. They made them just look useless. It made them look terrible because they were assuming this before they'd even looked at all the evidence. So once the evidence, in air quotes, they gathered had failed to turn up any leads or lead them to the killer, they closed the case. They just closed the case.
So
That
they
was
never
it.
found.
That's not where it's going to end.
Right.
So they closed her case at this point. This is what Thai police did. The police just wanted it all to blow over, brush it under the carpet so they could carry on like nothing happened. Kirsty Jones's case would stay cold for almost 11 years. But a new line of investigation randomly opened up, which they hoped they could kind of follow to lead them to anybody or any leads. Defed Powers Police, which is Welsh police, excuse my Welsh if we have any Welsh listeners, I'm not professing to be able to speak Welsh, okay? They said, and the Foreign Office had asked Thai authorities to investigate the claims made on a YouTube channel by an Australian man who used to live in Thailand. In this video, he stated that a professor and another Thai man were seen lurking around the Ari guest house in Chiang Mai, where Kirsty was staying at the time of her murder, the same night, same time, everything. The other man, who happened to be a Thai tourist police officer, had already been ruled out, though, by DNA. This information was passed to the Thai police to investigate further. So I'm not sure if relying on them, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, you're honest with your opinion, babe. I'm not sure if relying on them to use their due diligence is the correct route when they didn't even cordon off a fucking crime scene. What do you think? You're honest. What do you think? Do you think I'm being judgmental?
No, I agree with you.
You're expecting them to use their due diligence when they let a whole Thai news crew into a fucking crime scene with a murder victim.
I thought you said the reporters got there first.
That's what I'm saying. The reporters,
But how did the reporters know about it?
I don't know. They never said. Nothing was ever said about that.
So the reporters got there before the police.
Yeah. Someone must have tipped them off. Someone must have tipped them off before the police could get there.
But then surely the reporters are to blame the dumb as the cops over there.
You would think,
obviously,
yeah.
Why would you go in there and start taking photos? Take photos, I understand.
Touching a body.
But you're touching the body, moving everything, and it's like, yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
It's just absolute mad. I mean, this whole investigation was completely shambolic from the get-go. From the phone call to the police, the whole entire way through, it was just completely fucking shambolic. And I was watching a documentary yesterday, and it was for this case that we're doing this weekend, and they were saying like the first hours, like the first 2 hours or something, I think the first hour is called like the golden hour, and they were saying that's the most important and crucial time to get this information, and if they don't get it, it can end up completely destroying a case. And that's what ended up happening in this case, in my opinion. Detective Superintendent Andy John said his team were all given full access to the material that was gathered by the Department of Special Investigation in Thailand, and they actually ended up re-interviewing the British witnesses because they'd all returned home since this point. This was years, obviously, later.
Yeah, of course.
So they interviewed them again. Despite all of this work behind the scenes by the UK police force, they came to another dead end, and unfortunately, this one was final. Kirsty's killer was never brought to justice, and they're still out there, not being held accountable for their crime. Thailand has, unfortunately, a 20-year statute of limitations law. So because this happened in 2020, even if they were miraculously to catch Kirsty's murderer, he or they, whoever it is, if it was more than one person, they will not even face any criminal charges.
Because of 20 years now.
Because of the statute of limitations. A lot of places, it excludes the statute of limitations for murder. A lot of places, it still includes rape. So, like, if it runs over a period of time, rape, you can't be charged for it. But, like, a lot of a murder is excluded.
Right.
Not in Thai law. And I know that they've received a lot of criticism for that. And I think it's madness that there's a statute of limitations for that, but you can be, like, executed for, like, drugs. This is why Saran, the manager, didn't want to get caught, because he knew if he got caught with, like, drugs, heroin, amphetamines, anything, he was going to be sentenced to death. He knew that. So I think the logic just amazes me that some of these places, I mean, I know it's a different country, it's a different law and all those kind of things, but I just think it's crazy that it just seems backwards.
Yeah, but you can say about any law of any country.
There's a lot of laws that are a bit backwards.
You can debate all day long.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? We don't make up the laws.
I know we don't. Maybe we should.
A lot of people say that. Do you know what I mean? Some people say bring back the death penalty. Some people, but then you could have one people say, yeah, death penalty I agree with, and you could have somebody else saying I don't agree with death penalty.
I think you're very much one or the other with that one. But, yeah, I don't know on this one. I just think the statute of limitations is just fucking madness for murder. I don't think it should apply for murder. I really don't. Because even if this person was to walk into the police station, to walk into Chiang Mai police station and admit what they've done, they can't do anything. They can't be charged for it.
Yeah, but it's like a lot of things when you get I'm just trying to figure out the word now. When people come over to UK or you go over to another country and you can near enough do what you want and you can't get charged, you're above the law. There's a word for it.
Oh, diplomatic immunity.
Yeah.
Oh, like that woman that drove on the wrong side of the road and killed that person, that man, I think it was.
It's like,
and they got away with it. I think they are facing some kind of judgment now, but
because there was a fucking backlash. But
huge,
but before, going back a little while ago, you could have just been like, here, I set this house on fire. People went and near enough nothing.
She just got back on a plane and fucked off back to America.
Yeah. But nothing will happen to you.
Yeah, because her husband had diplomatic immunity, and so should she by marriage. Yeah, it's madness. I mean, speaking ahead of the 20th anniversary, her mother, Sue Jones, actually said just that, quote, "It's a really sad time for us as a family. We have worked hard over all these years to keep the Thai authorities interested in Kirsty's case and to ensure that the investigation continued to try and identify the persons or person responsible for her murder. I have very mixed feelings. I do ask myself if there is anything more we could have done, if we could have gone to Thailand more. Kirsty has gone from our lives whilst her killer remains at large. Had they have been brought to justice, the sadness and emptiness would still remain the same, but it may have brought us some closure. I hope we have done her proud in trying to get her justice. I just hope we did everything we could for Kirsty and that after 20 years she will be able to rest in peace." End quote. I mean, if anything, it's just so sad, isn't it? It's so, so sad. Like, she was so loved by everybody. In her funeral was actually attended by over 800 mourners. 800 people, yeah. At St. Bilo's Church, which was just 3 miles away from the family farm. The whole churchyard was absolutely packed with people from across the country wanting to pay respect. So loads of people travelled across Britain to go to her funeral. The Reverend Canon Dr. Peter Dixon told Kirsty's parents, Glenn and Sue, that they had shown great courage. And he said, quote, "I know Kirsty was and still is proud of you. We all want long lives, but just as important is the quality of life. And Kirsty did in her 23 years what most of us have done in 93 years. End quote. And I think that just kind of summarises the case, really, doesn't it? And her and how she lived her 23 years. You know, she didn't live very long and she should have had way more years to her life. But it was cruelly ended by somebody that is still
out there.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't cover many unsolved cases, do we, at all? We
No.
normally do. I don't. Unsolved cases just leave a bit of a bad taste in your mouth a lot of the time, and
Well,
that's why I don't tend to
it makes you
do
think.
them.
It makes you think though, doesn't it? The killer or
It's still
killers
out there.
is still out there. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
at least she had a good life. She enjoyed her life. She lived her life to the
she
fullest.
did.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, and that
I'll upload her pictures onto our Instagram. She looks like a proper, like, not even like hippie. She just looks like fun and cool. Like, that's just what she looks like. She looks like, to me, early 2000s teenager. That's what she looks
yeah,
like. And she just looks like a really, really happy 23-year-old. And she should have, as I said, she should have had way more years than what she did. But police actually believe, Thai police believe, that there was potentially two people. They believe that it was potentially done by two men, not just one. But again, none of that's ever been backed up. So
well, the case is closed now, isn't it?
yeah, well, it's closed by Thai police, but there's no point going any further with it because
Well, it's
nobody
nothing.
could be charged.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean even if they
It's
looked into it and then
pointless.
found him, it'd be like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do now.
You would be doing it for peace of mind. That's the only reason you'd be doing it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't achieve anything out of it.
No.
But if I was in that same position as what Glyn and Sue are in, would I want the police to still try, even though that I know my daughter's murderer would never be able to actually held accountable by law? I don't know. I mean, what do our listeners think? What do you think? It's a statute of limitations. They, whoever it is, they can't be charged for it. So, that's never going to change. So, I hope you enjoyed this case this week as much as you possibly could for an unsolved case. But thank you all for listening. We really, really appreciate it. I will upload the pictures of Kirsty. I'll upload a couple of them because they are really, really nice photos of her. And thank you guys for listening. We will have an episode up on Sunday as normal because it seems now my OneDrive is working now. So we will get an episode up this Sunday as normal. And we hope you enjoyed this little mini episode of ours today. So thank you guys for listening, and we will speak to you this weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.